it's the Old West, and there's a stagecoach, with a whole caravan, and all of a sudden they hear the drums. Bum 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 bum. And the guy riding on the stagecoach looks to his partner and grabs a shotgun and goes, "That doesn't sound good." Just then, a Native American warrior jumps out from behind the tree and says, "He's not our regular drummer." He's not our regular
Why
drummer.
do you do this every week? If Joe was here, you know what he would say?
What do you think he would say?
That's a good one.
Wrong answer. Wrong answer.
All right, let's try this.
No, let's not try this.
Hey, so Biff, did you hear what happened when the Thanksgiving turkey got into a fight?
What happened when the Thanksgiving turkey got into a fight?
He got the stuffing beat out of him. He
Just
got the
killing me.
stuffing beat out of him.
Just kill
The
me now.
stuffing.
Just kill me now.
Hello,
As
everybody.
God is my witness, I thought they could fly.
And welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
I'm Biff.
And for the time being, for a little bit, maybe the whole podcast, maybe just one more bad joke.
I'm Joe. Remember me? Hey,
Yeah.
remember the Joes? He's back.
Oh, and better than ever.
Absolutely.
Better than Ezra.
So as
Oof.
as we're recording this, we're waiting to also record our sideshow with the owner of the Retro Video Game World Replay. Very excited about that. And Joe was jumping on to be part of that conversation because, it's all about retro video games. I won't spoil how my world collided with the Replay video game store in Arlington, Mass. Is it Arlington? Alston.
Yep.
Alston, Mass. But we'll save that for next week's sideshow. But I will, while Joe's here, turn it over to Joe and let Joe tell Biff and the other three listeners about the text you sent me the other day and the magical mystery tour it took me on.
So, as I usually do, I peruse the Craigslist app on my phone during work hours, of course, to see what kind of great deals I could find, whether it be free stuff or video game stuff. Or
We're not talking about whores, are we?
no, sorry,
Okay.
no, not the good. This is the nerd Craigslist. It's not the cool Craigslist that all the kids are on nowadays. But sometimes those concentric circles combine, that Venn diagram of free and video games combine, and you get a posting for a free video game offer. And I said, "What's this?" And the first thing it said Atari and 12 games. Atari and 12 games free. And I go, wow, all right, well, I have one. I don't need that, but the games look cool. And then it says, oh, it's in Lowell. I don't live in Lowell. What am I going to do with, wait a minute. Somebody I know lives in Lowell. Their wife may or may not have been looking for an Atari 2600 recently and was willing to pay cash money for it. What if so I sent the text to Jacques and I said, hey, I know it's 2:30 in the afternoon or whatever it is, but I know you're just sitting around doing nothing, because I sure would be if I were you. And here's a listing for a free Atari in Lowell. And it's like, it posted like 13 minutes before. So I was like, this is like fresh free Atari, fresh 40-year-old video games waiting to be picked up by a loving owner. And I sent it to him and he goes, awesome. And then like an hour later or 2 hours later, I get a text with a picture of Jacques posing like a newborn son with his new father. I see him posing with his Atari 2600 and
Nice.
the Atari games. And he says, oh, by the way, the guy threw in a Wii. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool too. And then he shows me a picture of the manuals to all of the games. All of the games
Wow.
had their manuals,
Wow.
original manuals. And they're like, Pac-Man. I think Miss Pac-Man is one of them. Tennis.
Yep.
But then this is the kicker. This is what made me feel like Jesus Christ, bestowing a miracle upon a leper. Not only was this a free Atari 2600 that his wife was begging, basically pleading with God to get one of these days because she was craving Atari 2600. But it's the all black model of the Atari 2600, which collectors of the Atari 2600 have lovingly nicknamed the Darth Vader model. So I said, it's perfect. This is a perfect, like, peanut butter and chocolate moment of friendship and video games and Jacques and Star Wars. Here, Merry Christmas. And you're not getting any presents from me this December 25th. This is it.
You got the gift of knowledge and information.
And I did. I emailed right away, because like we've tried to give stuff away on Craigslist, and sometimes people will come right away. Sometimes it's like, oh, I love that. You don't hear about them. And then like 2 weeks later, you're like, wait, why do we still have this? The wife has done a great job finding stuff recently on Facebook Marketplace. I got this amazing, piano, organ for the, about 2-3 months ago, but this was pretty darn sweet. This is the top of the pops for me. And the guy wrote right back. And it's funny. It wasn't somebody like me or Joe, and, person who collects these or likes these. An older guy who lives in Lowell, it's been kicking around the house forever, no grandkids or whatever in the picture or when I play it. Pristine condition, like absolutely pristine condition. And like Joe said, he carries a box out, he puts it at the back of the car. I open it, he has a mask on. I have a mask on. And then he has this like paper bag. He's like, oh, I don't know if you'd be interested, but here, would you want this Wii? Because I can't find some of the cords, but I know it works. I'm like, great. My favorite thing and management's favorite thing was he still has to switch it. You screw on to the back of the old TV and the toggle to go up and down like video.
What brand of switch is that?
Oh, right. And the brand of switch it was from one of our former defunct sponsors, I believe, Radio Shack.
Yeah, a Radio Shack TV game switch. So I have to now I wouldn't be a journalist if I weren't asking follow-up questions. Have you hooked up the Atari 2600 to any sort of viewing device, and does it work?
We haven't yet because what was this? Was it Thursday? Did I get it on Thursday or did I get it on Tuesday?
I think it was like a Tuesday.
Because I think I was at the boys' school picking them up after Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday is their theater day. For the town thing. And it times out nicely because, as I've mentioned a few times, the Mill Number 5 in Lowell has been talking to me about, curating and creating events. My first official event, which is on the calendar, if you go to the Mill Number 5, I think it's millnumber5.com, and hit the calendar, November 17th, you will get a link to Joe's Basement, a retro video game party. And so, the gentleman, Brian from Replay, who we'll be talking to for next week's sideshow, is going to be bringing some games, but it's like, I might have some of my own, but I thought, okay, I can go to Amazon and get the doodads to connect this and this, or I could probably just pick them up from vendors, when I'm hoping that there's some vendors that have, those odds and ends to make 41-year-old systems work with new TVs and, the RCA, because Joe sent me a link. It's like, hey, you need one of these. And I thought about like jumping onto Amazon, but if I can buy it from like, a little guy vendor, like a mom and pop thing, I'd rather the business go to there than, Jeff Bezos, who, I can't forgive him for not making William Shatner not wear the Kirk outfit, when he took the joyride. But so that's my big news is that, I got Joe's Basement coming up November 17th. I got my own Atari 2600, which could possibly be, as my wife was pointing out to my boys, the first 2600 that I actually own, because we didn't have the money for those newfangled devices.
I never had one
then.
either. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like it's other, I saw it at other people's houses.
But yeah, Pitfall was in there and all those games. I've already posted, but I'll repost it. But another thing, it's great for Joe to be here because he can talk about this. The joke that I opened the show with came courtesy from a comedian that we saw again at Mill Number 5 last Wednesday. It was the first, comedy show that they've had. Former guest Greg Boggis's first, Mondo Comedy Show. And Joe, why don't you talk a little bit about the fun that we had there, including the difficulties that we had getting in?
Oh, well, first things first, these liberals with their COVID restrictions and, their protocols. Oh my God. I'm Mr., double vaxxed, I would be triple vaxxed if I was, at 65 or older, but I show up. And of course, the first thing that they ask when we wanted to buy like a concession is, okay, can we see your COVID card? And I go, I'll be right back. So I had to text my son who was at home, and I said, just text me a picture of the COVID card. Here's where it is. And luckily he still like speaks to me. So he forwarded me the COVID card. I got my thing. So that was a little bit of a speed bump. And, but then when we sat down, we finally got to the comedy. It was a great night of middle-aged white person comedy. I mean, it was just like
no other way to say it.
Yeah, man. I mean, Greg Boggis opened up with a solid 3 minutes, and then but it was all quality from start to finish, and then right to the action. It was like no fuss, no muss. And then we had the first comedian go up. What was it? The younger woman? I think it was like the blonde woman, right?
Right.
This is all great recaps.
I will post.
If only we could help them out. Not that the 4 listeners that we have are going to.
No. I will definitely post some names, but it was one of those. The standard thing. It was an opener, a middler, and then the headliner. And the there first
2 middles. 2 middles.
But turned out to be 2 middles. 2 women. Really fun routines. Then there was a special guest, a friend of Greg's who's working out material, who has a bigger show coming up. He was really good. And some of one of his best bits, he fucked up. And it was great the way a pro fucks up and rolls with it and makes the fuck up funny. Like, he didn't try to cover it up. He just jumped right in front of it. And as he got to the punchline, he was like, oh, God damn it. I forgot to mention, this fact, in the setup, which was funny, which is why, he was there working out new material.
I have the comedians' names, by the way. So the first woman was it was a Mona Forgione, and then it was Kristen O'Brien. Special guest, I forget. I think it was Justin something. Gosh, I forgot his last name because he was not listed on the thing. And then we'll talk about
Bieber, Justin Bieber.
Yes,
Justin Bieber. Yep, Bieber? Getting into comedy now.
Oh man, his piss bucket routine is second to none.
Best. So Joe, why don't you talk about the headliner?
Okay. The guy's name is Joe Yanetti. He's like a late 50s, early 60s kind of, very very animated, very like New England, as they all are. And a lot of crowd work because I think he's just done his act. He had to fill to the end of the show. I think he had a timer on his phone that 9 o'clock rolled around or 9:30 rolled around, show's over. And so he had 15, 20 minutes to fill. And he was great. I think for all things considered, it's kind of hard to do crowd work without a crowd. I mean, he had 7 people.
7?
Oh. There were 18. There was because he had, was it him who had the joke? It's I've always dreamed about performing in the Luna Theater in Lowell in front of people that would be fed by one cheese pizza.
Yeah.
He had no material. He that joke that I told that was his. He ended the show with it. He's like, oh, but everything else was mostly everything else was just working off the people in the room, and luckily
it was 80% crowd work. Yeah,
and it was great to see him tie some things back in later. You know what I mean? Just it was fun. It was a really good show. It was a really solid show.
He was the comedian who was on a cruise ship in Alaska.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where these guys, it's funny because Greg has sent me a bunch of names of people. He's like, oh, I talked to some friends. They want to do your podcast. Reach out to this one, reach out to this one. And one of the persons that he we will have as a guest didn't hit me back right away. It was like 2 or 3 days later. And I get the voicemail. I don't answer it because I don't recognize the number. It's like, oh, somewhere, and we're docked on a cruise ship, and on the cruise ship they don't have great Wi-Fi. Sorry, I haven't got back to you. Yeah, really interested in doing the show, blah blah blah. So I'm definitely, and I don't know if Joe's going to make that incredulous journey down Route 3 every time, but I'll be a regular at those shows. They're fun. I mean, and it's hard for me to say, yeah, I can't make the 3-mile drive across town, on a Thursday night. But if they
gave away Atari games every, at every show, then that gives something, back to the community.
So it was that was fun. So I'm glad that we had Greg on, and it's nice that the live shows are happening. I hope that they start becoming more filled up, especially after both Joe and I get our boosters, which I'm guessing will be imminent. Biff already got his. We'll talk about that in COVID.
Yeah.
But now let's move on to a segment that Joe used to call "How Racist is Jacques?" And I wore my racism on my sleeve this week. I'm gonna.
Oh man. I thought they outlawed that in Germany.
I'm going to out myself for my racist tendencies this week. In Lowell, it was the first time there was a combined school committee election and city council election. Usually it's on different ballots. Usually they're in different years, but for whatever reason, maybe it was, COVID had skipped a year, but there was a local election in Lowell. And I will talk a little bit about my racism. A while ago, February of 2020, my oldest guy, performed a couple songs with his school theater group at a school committee meeting. They had just done a successful run of Frozen Junior, and they were doing 2 songs at the school committee meeting as a way to kind of get the school committee to appropriate more funds to do 2 plays the next year, not 1. And as management and I are sitting in the balcony with the other parents, and it's a very melting pot group of parents, every race, creed, and color. We're looking down at the 7-person school committee who all look like me, or
unkept and hairy
yes,
and
yeah, but it was varying degrees of white, and more white.
Let's just say it could be another Mondo Comedy lineup.
Yes, it could be.
Somewhere from eggshell to
translucent,
white,
Dove white, yeah, right.
And the same thing, like the city council is the same, and the mayor's an old white guy. And Lowell has the distinction, I think it still does, but for decades, the most diverse city in the United States. Like there's 147 different nationalities represented, in the town. And you drive around and great little restaurants that you can barely see that, are this food and that food, and in these little neighborhoods and these little, fun stores. And like I said, my boys, friends, it's a melting pot and it's great, but it's sad that the city government and all the cops you see directing traffic all look like, 10 years older than me, 10 years younger than me, but right in that sweet white spot. So the wife and I basically a little while ago, when we got our ballots, we were like, okay, let's base our voting and pretty much vote for anyone who doesn't look like us, and one day I opened my mailbox and there was a flyer from, this woman, Stacey Thompson, African-American woman, Black, I don't know the right thing, a woman probably in her 30s ish, look, I don't want to even guess the age. And right away,
how much do you think she weighed?
Yeah, because that's always, but I called the number and I said, hey, I'm reading the literature. I looked you up online. How do I get a yard sign? And she's like, I will bring one right over. And she did, and so my racism was being a self-hating white guy where I went out of my way to vote for anyone who didn't look like me or Joe's wife. You know what I mean? Just a white woman. And a couple races, it was, you know, in certain districts, it was like, you know, this white guy or that white guy. So I kind of looked and said, okay, well, they're both Democrat, they're both white, flip a coin. But as far as, you know, putting my racism on display in the same thing. And it's funny because, you know, there's other people in town who really did some research who we like, the people who run that group Llama. And I was very happy that, you know, they put out there, it's like, hey, this is who, you know, who we're supporting. They didn't say this is who we're voting for, you know, they were careful about the wording. And it was pretty much the same. So, you know, I'm happy to say that that the diversity of the school committee and the city council, you know, after 300 years of being a town, it's starting, you know, it's going to look a little bit more like my son's classrooms that he's in. So,
and a little less like the council on Footloose.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And there was one guy who does look like he could have been in a like, you know, a 70s, a bass player in a 70s, you know, all white funk band who was, so here's two things, like he was the one anti-masker on the committee. So I'm glad that he didn't get in. And also, if you remember a little while ago on a live Facebook live city council meeting, a older white guy, like late 60s, who's been on the council for like 20 years, decided to drop an anti-Semitic slur and ended up having to resign like over pressure. It took about 2 or 3 weeks for him to resign. Yeah, he was on the ballot again. You know, luckily he did not win, but it's like, yeah, maybe everybody forgot.
I mean, to be fair, is there such a thing as an anti-Semitic compliment? So, I mean.
Oh, by the way, shout out to, and speaking of voting for non-white people, Boston just elected its first non-white mayor in its goddamn history.
Right.
Michelle Wu.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, we just had our elections, and you know, it turns out that everybody who got elected all looked like me. Now, when I say we, I'm talking about the homeland, and well, it's kind of the way they roll over there.
Canada?
No, not that one. In Japan, but you know, they all look like me. It's just amazing. No, you know, just
racist motherfuckers, man. They're always
fuckers.
So, well, you know, so I guess we're going to have a Asian hairy section of the podcast, because the next thing that I put on the rundown, and you know, Joe will be hearing about this for the first time. About a week ago, our good friend, my good friend Dan Cray, sent me a podcast. I think it was called Radio Lab. It's an
NPR one. It's an NPR.
NPR out of New York, and they have a new program called Mixtape. And I don't know. It's China. I think it was Chinese. Do you want to take a crack at that word, Biff? That's on the rundown. Daku.
That's probably It's probably Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
So this episode was about how music made its way into China over like the last 30 years. Yep. And you got to listen to the show, Biff. Did you get it?
I have not had a chance, even though I actually knew about some of that, because essentially, you know, it's one of those deals where basically they got trash, and then but it was music, so essentially it was kind of almost like inadvertent black market music that they got.
Right. So I strongly suggest it's called Mixtape on Radio Lab.
Yeah.
But I'll give the Reader's Digest summary. China in the 80s started buying up the world's recycling.
Yeah, right.
And that recycling was tens of millions of unused cassette tapes. And that word, Daku, if I'm saying it right. So the guy that they were profiling, who's a music journalist who got into music because he saw a black market smoke-filled backroom screening of Apocalypse Now, and his brain couldn't imagine the realism, the violence. But what really blew him away is this. Up until this point, the only music he had ever heard is the Chinese Communist government over the past whatever generation had commissioned 7 operas that played relentlessly on their radio and on loudspeakers. And they were all these operas about the poor worker rising up against evil capitalism. So his only music that they heard were these 7 operas for, his entire life. Now, all of a sudden, he's hearing the Doors' This Is the End. Right. And he's hearing Jimi Hendrix and all the soundtrack from Apocalypse Now. And that started him. Years later, he was on a business trip, and basically, kind of a back room in a convenience store had these tapes, and he bought all the tapes he could physically carry. But he didn't notice till he got back to this hotel, they all had a cut in them. And what in the US, what they had done, what they tried to destroy the tapes before throwing them in recycling. They put them through a machine, and that word means to cut through. Or that word to coup in Chinese means, a cut within.
So they had cut out.
Like, and so whoever rounded up those tapes had to splice together. So you missed the first 30 seconds of the first song. And so here was the interesting thing why I sent it right away to Biff specifically and to our friend Scotty Black, was because they're big musicians and music guys. And what was fascinating, and this is my big takeaway, these people for the first time are hearing, generations of music simultaneously, having so the Beatles led to Zeppelin, that led to this, that led to Nirvana, that led to whatever, or having, this genre of music or that genre. It's like, oh man, if you like metal, you can't like country. If you listen to country, you can't listen to pop, like that kind of stuff. And there was one guy who was an American professor teaching English over there for years. And he was always trying to school, educate like the kids who were getting into music and hearing music for the first time. Oh, if you like this, you have to listen to this because this influenced that band, how we've broken that down. And specifically, 10 years after losing contact with one of his students, he was at a big music festival, and he saw one of his former students who was in a punk band, and they're the spiked hair, all this stuff. And ironically, the lead singer was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and the guy thought that was funny. It's like, oh, so they get that if you're in a punk band, fuck these metal guys. And then the band starts playing, and their first couple songs could have been right off the Sex Pistols or the Clash, like standard punk, great songs. And then like the second or third song, it starts off as a punk song and then goes into an intricate metal solo. Yeah. It's akin to something that you would hear off an Iron Maiden thing. And that's when it hits them. It's like, there's 2 kinds of music in China. He walked away. There's only 2 kinds of music in China. There is the government-sponsored 7 operas and everything else. and
it is funny that you mentioned Iron Maiden, because you know what? Iron Maiden actually was one of those bands that, there's 2 metal bands that punks listen to, and one of them is early Iron Maiden. The other one is Motorhead. But it's so, and the funniest thing is that the leader of Iron Maiden was asked these questions about, well, you had the punk guys on your side, and the guy just said, no, we have nothing to do with. So the guy refuses to acknowledge any kind of a punk influence, flavor, anything about it. He wants himself to be metal, yet the punks actually did like Iron Maiden. So it kind of funny that you got that little joining there, right?
So it was like he'd be talking to some of his students. It's like, yeah, that Beatles stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't really get why people. It's like, because it was first, it was so great because it was, and this is why you have to love it and respect it, because there was nothing before that. But in their world, there was nothing. They got it all at once. So they're not, they don't have these preconceived.
You know what it is? It's
really fascinating.
Yeah. But it is similar to the conversation I had with my son, where it's in my life in movies, there was like 2 moments, of this, holy crap, right? The first one was the first time I saw, Star Wars Episode 4, where
and then Phoebe Cates' boobs when she comes out of the pool in Fast Times at Richmond High.
Good Lord. And then the other one was Jurassic Park, right? Where literally that scene where they turn Laura Dern's head around, and she's, that's the expression the entire theater had, right? So essentially it's one of those things where if that all existed, it's like, yeah, okay, so that's, that's like regular stuff.
It's a really fun listen. So let's stick, and this is in your wheelhouse, and I put this on the rundown because management, brought this to my attention the other day, and I was almost giddy to want to talk about it because it crosses. This is all you. How are you up to speed about Baby Metal and Rob Zombie?
I saw the little thing on that, but lately I haven't been following Baby Metal much, like because they're it's for one thing, one of the girls left, and so that really changed everything. And no, actually, they're a little bit,
Did she leave because she didn't want to get vaccinated?
No. So it is one of those deals where it is actually a brutal. They're still like it's a manufactured band, right? Like those, or whatever.
Did she age out? They're like
it's not that she aged out. I think it's just that they just have these really, really brutally exhausting schedules, and I think it just gets too much. I mean, it's just
they opened up for Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
And Rob Zombie really likes them.
Yeah.
And for years, I feel a little ahead of the curve on this, Joe, because for years I only know about them because of Biff and conversations with Guitar Center Scotty. So he sent me links, and it's one of those things where you see these adorable, like young Japanese, like girls playing drums, and you think, oh yeah, I'm never gonna be that good. They're just
so baby metal doesn't, they don't play their instruments, right? They're actually like a kind of like this vocal 3-piece, and then they have actual real people playing behind them. So Baby Metal is kind of they're an anomaly. They're like unique within Japan.
But I'm trying to think of some of the stuff you've sent me, and these hard rocking metal girls. Anyways, absolutely. Rob Zombie likes them.
Yeah.
Had him open for the tour, and instantly the male toxicity from Rob Zombie's fans that look like me and Joe were instantly like, I lost all respect for you, blah blah blah. It's like, and to his credit, Rob Zombie just shut them all down instantly. And basically it's like, hey, I don't mind if this offends you, then I don't want you being my fan anyways, type thing. I mean, seriously, it was awesome to see how, he stepped up. But again, it's just another reason why I voted against Whitey in the Lowell election. We suck.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where if you actually go, it is an amazing experience. Like I saw it, and I kind of got it, and so I went to see them live, and their live show and it's not anything about. It's not about there's these cute little girls doing this stuff. It's just this whole package is like it's like nothing else. It's kind of like watching Kiss in a way, right? There's that Kiss thing where the music is like not necessarily that amazing, right? Kiss music is decidedly mediocre, but the show itself is great, and that's what that is. But and going
like
back
Hamilton.
Was that
no,
kind of like Hamilton.
No,
the music, give or take the music on a CD.
Awesome.
But the experience, man, you're there for the experience.
So that was so moving on from Asian metal or Asian music. So it turns out, and you've already mentioned Star Wars. So we meet our quota. We meet our floor of at least 2 Star Wars references. It turns out Peter Cushing's had a career before playing, Grand Marshal Tarkington on Star Wars.
Well, time out. Grand Moff Tarkin. And I'm not the Star Wars guy.
No, but you are also not the idiot. So,
you were like Marshall. He played Marshall Tucker Band in Star Trek. So let's.
Hey, I got the gender right. Anyway, so
Peter Cushing, by the way.
Peter Cushing, and I don't know why I was just scrolling, and I think I was on our friend Sully's Plex thing, and I saw this Frankenstein from Hell movie, and I'm like, oh, this looks awful. Looked at my watch, which I'm not wearing. I got time. I got that kind of time. Here's all these new movies. I think now that we have Hulu, not going to mention how I got it, but I'll just randomly say thank you, Joe. I think I now have 47 streaming services, the latest and greatest movies. Sure, watch Frankenstein from Hell from 1974. And as I'm watching it, it turns out that it is the 7th Frankenstein movie in the Hammer
Hammer films.
The Hammer films, and which Peter Cushing's plays a version of the Dr. Frankenstein in 6 out of the 7. And this one was the last one. And I don't know why, maybe because he went on to do Star Wars and didn't have to do another horror film. But this one absolutely 100% ended on a almost, all right, see you back here in 6 months when we have another one of these.
Don't forget, he also did Rogue One.
Yeah, he did do Rogue One, and he
did
did
a bunch
that
of those like horror movies,
grave.
right? He did a bunch of those like those Dracula-ish movies also, right? I mean, he did a bunch of those horror movies, right? So yeah, I mean, because I remember him, I'm a little bit older than you, so maybe I had seen some of those, goofy, horror movies on TV or whatever.
But it was great. It was really. And by great, I mean, it was a really bad 1974, Frankenstein horror movie. But what was fun is doing the Wikipedia and going through it. And it's like, the Frankenstein story is public domain, but the Frankenstein monster is owned by Universal. Oh, I'm
looking through Peter Cushing's IMDb page, and he has 131 acting credits, as I would have expected out of a guy like Peter Cushing. I did not expect to see the title from 1979, Son of Hitler.
No, by the way, was he the son, or was he,
I'm bringing Hitler back to the Carnival Personnel podcast.
Yep. Thank you.
We've been woefully under quota on the Hitler references on CP. So I'm here to, raise that level of, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But anyways, he's in Son of Hitler. But he plays Heinrich Hausner. Yeah. So add that to the
schnauzer.
I wonder if that's on Mike's Plex account.
I'm gonna have. You know what? It will be by the time we wrap. It will be by the time we wrap.
Mind you, that was 2 years after Star Wars.
Yeah. But at the same time, is it any better or worse than Corvette Summer? That's what Mark Hamill did between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. He brought us Corvette Summer. So,
man, he had to pay for those hospital bills.
Not everybody went from Star Wars to Raiders of the Lost Ark,
I forget. Did he have did Mark Hamill get into that accident between 4 and 5?
Yeah. That's why.
Before that, I think I thought it was after Star Wars, but didn't Harrison Ford do a movie called Frisco Kid?
He did, and did
you ever see that movie with Gene Wilder?
I think that was also after, but our research department will look that up. But yeah, no. So that whole scene with the Wampa and Luke Skywalker was added. After production, had started, they were in pre-production on that because of that, accident that he was in. So they had Mark Hamill has a huge scar on his face. Well,
here's why.
This is why. That's why they created that scene. But
he was also, by the way, Peter Cushing was also, by the way, just to wrap up the Peter Cushing talk, he was also in 1969's Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, where he played Baron Frankenstein.
I think Von Frankenstein, which I did also, and I won't bore everybody with it, but I didn't have a choice. I also watched Young Frankenstein this week as well.
Oh, so great.
I think I had to, but getting back to, Frankenstein Monster from Hell. Yeah. They couldn't use the typical Frankenstein monster because that is owned by Universal. That's one of the Universal monsters. Their look, they couldn't get, but they could.
Wait, so does Frankenberry have to pay a royalty to Universal?
Huge. Yeah.
Really?
That's why they can only afford to,
that's why there's only 6 marshmallows in a box. Is that what it is?
Because they had to cut that somewhere. Speaking of huge companies that suck, all
of them.
You were right. Some of them suck and some of them really suck. But here's the problem. Much like we've talked about before, when the NFL, it is a pretty shitty overall organization, especially what's going on in Chicago. The NFL, it's like, I wish I knew how to quit you, type thing. But Disney, which I love. Here we are talking about, Star Wars and Marvel, and I live for the theme parks and all this stuff. But Disney can't stop being fucking awful. And a few weeks ago, it was them being awful with Scarlett Johansson and trying to fuck her over. And now I guess in the city of Anaheim, They have an $18 minimum wage that has passed.
Okay.
But the fine people at the Disney Corporation went to federal court to get a waiver to not have to pay their park employees the living wage of $18 an hour. And I just wish that Disney would be a magical place for its employees as well. It's just, and the thing is, it's funny. I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. We were having dinner, and the young girl who was waiting on us, who kind of knows us, she was all excited because she's I think she's 20, 21. Her mom's driving her down in a couple of weeks to Florida, where she's going to a 6-month Disney college program.
Oh,
Basically,
cool.
yeah, she's going to work at the hotel in the theme park, and basically it's like, instead of going to college, come down here, we'll put you through our training program. And she's like, management now, and like my boys, loves Disney, loves the culture, loves the park, and that's why they have people lining up to come work for them. And they know they can shit on people. They know that they can get away with it. And, management has a friend who's, her age, who hasn't worked at the park in like 15, 20 years, who still has close friends that for 10 years, they all worked at the park together, and they love. And it's funny because we were talking to this, like, this girl, and she was just fantastic. And it's funny because we're thinking, it's like, oh my God, she's just a few years older than our oldest son. It's like, it's just fine. It's funny that he's creeping up to that age. But, we were talking to her about how many times we used to go to the park and how often we would see people. We would see him on Wednesday working at the Star Wars show, and then we would see them that Saturday or Sunday when we went back walking the park themselves, because on their day off they want to go and do the rides and they want to experience. I mean, and it's not like one or two people. It's like most of the people who work at the park love the park, and it just sucks that. I know companies have had a hard time. I know that, but they've raised their prices to compensate. Our friend Renetsky still has a season pass. And honestly, when we started getting season passes in like 2007, 2008, they were like $150 to $200 for the California season pass. And now they're up to like $2,200, $2,400 for like the season. And people like Renette and people like us would gladly pay it because we would go once a week. But it's like when Disney can't stop being pieces of shit. They crank out material that I love. I'm waiting in line to go see the Eternals. I can't wait to see their next big movie. I can't wait to see the next Star Wars thing that comes out on their channel or on the big screen. I can't wait to get back to the theme parks, but I just wish they would stop being festering pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop giving them money and they'll stop buying the things you love so much.
Give me another line that is impactful as "I wish I knew how to quit you," because like if giving up black tar heroin was that easy, Joe.
I think it's time to, like I said a few weeks ago, go to the Shout Factory TV and watch the Japanese Tokusatsu channel for all the goofy superhero stuff.
I was last night again, because it's me, on Mike's Plex account watching Force 5, that first wave of Japanese animation that came over in like 78, 79 that came out in the early 70s. But now more fun stuff. We touched on a little bit. What's happening in the COVID world other than you getting your booster, Biff?
Well, I mean, did you see the whole in the brouhaha in New York City where like they said essentially they're going to have 10,000 people walking out, of the police force. And I guess there were 34 requests for exemptions. Yeah. 10,000, 34, similar numbers. No, yeah. Come on. Be committed, right? If you're going to do it, commit to it.
And you saw all over like Twitter, and I'm guessing all like the other ones, the people videotaping themselves being escorted out of their jobs as nurses. Right. Like, dude, you worked in a hospital the last 20 months and you still won't get this. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be around the patients because you're too stupid. Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my God, that's. But
they've lasted 20 months without a COVID shot. Why do they have to go?
Right. Thank you. What?
It is the irony, though, right? Because they're resisting the thing that is killing them more than any other. Like right now, the biggest cause of death, in the police
law enforcement and first responders,
yeah.
right? It is COVID, but so Biff got his booster this past week.
Yes, sir.
And on Tuesday, my 11-year-old is giddy. He is absolutely giddy. He's getting a shot. Yep. Like, there's a walk-in place down the street and the line was so long, and I'm like, which was funny because it was all old people fighting to get into this small space to get their shot. It's like, you want to get a booster because it's still here, but yet you're crowding in this small foyer, and you guys are in that age. So we took one look and I'm like, okay, what's the website? Okay, I signed you up 2:30 Tuesday, as soon as you get out of school, I'll pick you up. We do this, and I bring you back for your theater thing. If you don't die from your COVID vaccination or get magnetic and then start sticking to you, I don't know what he's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to some people, on Zoom calls during the weekend. They were saying, just keep on hitting the refresh because they're trying to get find the open slots, and the websites are getting hammered and all that stuff. So so good for everybody for essentially rushing to get their kids vaccinated.
Yeah. So and honestly, he's lived with his liberal snowflake, take this serious parents for the past 20 months, and he is absolutely,
and also with you.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we got that. So Biff, usually sometimes your This Week in Crime are funny or absurd, but
this one was kind of serious.
But no animation. No
animation. So did you watch the whole thing? So you saw like people kind of rushing back in the subway.
But yet one guy who kind of looked like he was dressed like the Joker, sitting there smoking. Well, he had that purple jacket and the green shirt.
Obviously that was the issue, right? Because everybody knows that you can't smoke in a subway. So so this dude essentially decided that he wanted to be the Joker, and on Halloween night dressed up as the Joker, and went around and he started like cutting people with a knife, because this is Japan. They don't have guns. So he went into a subway and started cutting people, and then eventually he had like a container of gasoline or some kind of a fuel or whatever, and then so if you saw a portion of the thing where you saw things kind of lighting up, basically he was trying to burn down the subway or whatever. And the Japanese, being the Japanese, they just kind of ran away from a dude with a knife, because if somebody tries to pull that shit in New York City, that guy's gonna get beaten to a pulp, right? So, but Japan's such a peaceful country that they don't know what to do with that kind of stuff.
But it looked like one of the subway carts was all completely engulfed, and then it looked like he threw something else in there. It was already ignited, and then he threw the can in there that caused it. But then he's just sitting there smoking. Calm as can be.
And and somebody's taking the video of that, because that's what they do.
Right. And what was the outcome? What was he arrested and charged with?
Well, he was the typical attempted murder, whatever, assault, all that stuff, right? So there was apparently one gentleman that was seriously injured out of it, but all in all, that's what we don't have mass shootings in Japan because there's no shootings in Japan.
Some people just want to watch the train burn.
Something like that.
So are you? Don't get over political, but are you saying if there's less guns, there's less shootings? Yeah,
I'm
whatever. Go back to where you came from, Toronto. Wait,
look out! He has a board with a nail in it.
Well,
Hey, what's that about?
Discuss the Second Amendment in Japan. I don't know what that is, but there's probably some kind of a Second Amendment over there.
So this week in video game, what is old is new again. And so the last Christmas, and I talked about this with Joe way back when, our titled, privileged, mostly white kids who get everything they want handed to them on a silver platter, asked for an Oculus. Relentlessly asked for an Oculus. Guess what they got on Christmas? No hints. Oculus. And so they had the Oculus, and a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, about a month goes by. It's like, why aren't you guys ever using the Oculus?
It's hard.
The other one's better. What other one's better? Yeah, thank you, Joe. I wish this was a podcast. You know what? Maybe we'll have to redo the whole podcast, and Joe will have to make that expression again. Joe made the raised entire eyebrow face look of like, what? And I guess they have it in their head that the PS4 VR is better. And that's the one they really wanted. It's like, this is one that you asked for relentlessly. It's hardly been used over the last year. And then the other day, my 14-year-old comes down to get me because he was acting like our upstairs was a Japanese subway cart on fire. And I had to go check it out. Call back, kids. And there was a new trailer because Resident Evil 4 is now available on the Oculus. So the Oculus has been used more in the last week because the boys are playing the Resident Evil 4 game, which I played it for a little bit, but the VR, I mean, I get a little motion sickness, and it's also, I'm old. Look, I just got the 2600, with the one joystick. I don't want to have to go through this whole VR world of like, no, this is how you have to walk, and this is how you have to walk. Oh, no, you get the shotgun this way. But they've been playing it. They've been loving it. And I will say what little I played on it, that VR shit is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
I'm not sure if I can handle the motion sickness either, but it does seem like it's pretty, it's gotten pretty great, right? So
yeah, I'm waiting till VR becomes 25 years old, and then I'll get into it.
I mean, and that's a question that I have for our friend Brian if we get to talk to him today. It's like one of the questions is, when will the PS4 be considered retro? Like, how old does it have? I think something to be an antique has to be 100 years old, but how old? Like piece of furniture.
Years.
20 years.
Right now, I think the original Xbox and the PlayStation 2 are being considered retro, and those came out like in 2000 and 2001.
Complete sidebar. Biff, what was the first band that you heard on a classic radio station that pissed you off because you're like, wait a minute, that's not, oh shit, that's 25 years old?
I think I want to say something like Guns N' Roses, right?
Yeah, me, it was U2's when I heard The Streets Have No Name. And I'm like,
essentially in LA, right? There's classic rock, there's KLOS, and if it's on KLOS, it's fine. It's when something is on K-Earth, that's when it's like, whoa. Like, because when I first came to LA, K-Earth was playing all that, the 50s doo-wop stuff, right? Right.
Well, you think about this. I mean, we are further removed from 1985 than 1985 was from 1950. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is the absolute, kick in the pants. When I heard Where the Streets Have No Name, I was like,
I remember when I first subscribed to Sirius Radio back in like 2006, they had like, the 40s channel, the 50s channel. And then like later on, it was like the Elvis channel. None of those channels exist today.
Yep.
Because those people are dead. Nobody gives a fuck about 40s music or 30s music or,
Jacques raises his hand as he listened to Billie Holiday all afternoon.
Well, but I mean, that's fine, right? But the thing that really aged me was I was in a conversation with a bunch of, much younger people at my old company. And so I was talking to them, in the 80s, I used to go to the Sunset Strip like every weekend and go see the up and coming metal bands and whatever else, right? And I realized that I am talking to them the way the geezers used to tell us about like, the Summer of Love. It's like, holy crap, I turned into that guy.
Am I truly
that old guy?
Have I truly become the man I mocked as a child? Oh God.
Absolutely. Well, that's have you seen that Geico commercial, turning into your parents?
The best.
That's what it is.
I will be fast forwarding through, like I was late, getting home for the Patriots game the other day, and I was fast forwarding through, the commercials. Stop, rewind. Oh, yeah. Even if I've seen those are, one of my favorites is when he's having the conference, and it's like, if you printed out directions, you're at the right place. To get here today. All right.
He's at the airport, I got all these snacks. You don't have to. Nope. Nope. Just jumps it out of their head. Yeah.
No cussing, no fussing.
Yeah.
Trash.
You don't know him. You don't know. Oh, and I do have to remind myself. It sucks when it hits home. And there was one where, a handy guy's at the house fixing things, and the progressive guy is telling the person, it's like, you're not the assistant, you're paying him to be here. You know what I mean? It's like, and so when people come to
the guy with the hair, we all see it.
We all see it.
I'll see you.
Blue.
Yeah.
All right.
I am not afraid to open a PDF. I'm just going to say it
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, you're so much younger than us. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I'm younger than Biff, and you're younger than me, and but you'll probably die first.
Probably.
Willing, God willing.
This is the big one, Elizabeth.
So Biff, let's talk about the yin and the yang of the NHL.
Oh my God. Well, so it's not really the yin and the yang, right?
I have a really positive thing, but you have the negative thing.
Sure.
I
Well, I think the hockey is a lovely sport. NHL is a horrible organization, right? That's what it comes down to. So, and so even this is one of those weeks where NHL comes to the forefront of the news because they were embroiled in essentially what is effectively your classic, the same thing that the Catholic Church did with child molesting priests, right? Where there was a predatory coach that essentially ruined this young player's career effectively, and the player reported it to the team, and the team just kind of sat on it and buried it. And not only did they bury it, they made the guy go away, but didn't exactly fire him, and then gave a glowing reference so that he eventually ended up working at a high school where he molested a 16-year-old, and he ended up going to jail for that. And so it's like, yeah, so if they had done the right thing in 2010 when this occurred, the guy would have gone to jail and some poor 16-year-old's life wouldn't have been ruined. But so all these lives ruined thanks to to the essentially the ineptitude of this team. And it was because this team was the Chicago Blackhawks was in the middle of a Stanley Cup run that they eventually won. And it's like winning at all costs. And so at all costs means a 16-year-old's child can eventually get ruined. And obviously that's an extrapolation, but still
hey, it was a different time, and by different time I mean the playoffs. That's
right.
No, and there were all those stories. I want to say the guy's name was Kennedy a few years back, who the same
Sheldon Kennedy.
Thank you. He played for the Bruins for a while, who came up through the junior systems, and same thing. There was a coach who, I mean,
no, that wasn't an NHL coach. That was just
but in the junior, in the junior systems, for most of the people who listen to us know how the hockey world works. And, it's only the past 10, 15, 20 years that really players have come from the collegiate system. It was always through the junior system.
Yep.
And if you got a legitimate shot at the NHL, by the time you're 14, at the latest 15, you're moving away from home, thousands of miles away from home. Yep. You're playing junior hockey. You're living at billet parents' houses, and you are completely on your own. And there were so many coaches who would like control your life, can control your thing, and just
absolutely.
There's no better way of saying it than the same thing as a priest. They're in a position of authority and power over you in the moment, but also they control your ability to move up to the next level, and awful things have happened forever and ever and ever. It's a scary thing, but when it hits at the NHL by that point, and the fact that an original 6 team did that. I mean, it's just disgusting.
No, it's an original 6 team with a super racist logo. So
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Hey, racism's alive and well. But the one positive thing in the NHL, have you heard much about the Seattle Kraken's building and how environmentally friendly it is?
Yeah. I obviously, because I actually pay attention to this stuff. So yeah, the Climate Pledge building, and not just that, but like everything about them. Like another thing that's just in terms of how they're so different is that there's this thing called the 3 stars for Joe, who doesn't really care about any sports, but the players who perform the best during a game is part of this ritual called the 3 stars, where the players come out, and essentially it's their way of kind of saluting the fans, who essentially get to cheer for their great play and so on. And many teams have gimmicks associated with that ritual. What they did was they wanted to come up with something that was uniquely, essentially, Pacific Northwest. and they hired a Native American consultant, to essentially deliver this idea that we want to do this salmon toss, right? So they have these plush, they're not going to do raw salmon, right? So they have these plush salmon that they're going to toss into the to the fans, so the guy gets this, the first drive of the game, the staff hands him a salmon that he tosses into the crowd. That's the ritual. But even the salmon, essentially, they went through the consulting to make it look realistic, and on it, they actually have a label that tells you about the importance of salmon in the the Native American heritage and culture, and how they're endangered. I mean, the whole package, right? So they're super thoughtful, just throughout. So yeah, it's an amazing organization.
But I heard this whole thing on the building, and then it was like, okay, now that it's open, they brought in two different competing universities to, how really carbon free or and footprint, and how much recycled rainwater is really being used in the ice. It's like, let's peel this onion back, and look, they're trying to do something nice, but let's really examine this scholarly. And one university came back and it's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And the other one came back, it's like, oh my God, this is pretty much the most amazing thing in the world. We're only going to score to 98, out of 100. But the fact that, and it's funny, like how many new teams and new buildings and new, had the chance to do it right. And
well, so they are the anti-Vegas, right? Because the Vegas is completely the other way, right? They're all about the glitz and the glitter and the lights and everything else. And I'm not trying to, crap on Vegas, right? Because this is an entertainment thing, but it's just, they're kind of doing it in the context of this is what their community is like, right? Vegas's community is what that is. And it's just, this is a different way of kind of coming into a, community and getting, essentially community buy-in, among other things.
No, it is fantastic in the sensitivity. Just before we move on, just real quickly, I just thought this, when you're talking about Vegas, the culture shock from Eckel moving from Buffalo to Vegas.
That dude's from right by your, right next door to you. He's a Chelmsford kid. Yeah.
It was literally the neighboring town.
The next.
And everybody was hoping he'd wind up a Bruin like someday. But that's funny. To go from Buffalo to Vegas. Wow. So I know. Again, I now have Hulu, so I am completely caught up and watched the first season of Only Murders in the Building, and I believe Joe's caught up on it. Are you caught up? No. So you get me hooked on this, and then you jump off the wagon. What episode are you on?
Don't smoke your own supply, man. I'm only up to through episode 5, but again, I'm trying to watch it with my wife, but she's been like super busy working or some shit.
Oh, I hate when women,
yeah, and she doesn't work like
it's
regular
always the
normal hours.
Yeah, it really is.
I just blame women for everything.
It's
Wait, is this on?
All right. So do you have Hulu, Biff, or do you know much about this?
I do know about it. That's it's Steve Martin Short, Selena Gomez, right?
And I might be the first person to say this out loud. Mm-hmm. I think if he makes a couple good choices going forward, that Martin Short could wind up being somebody. That kid, he's got a lot of moxie. Let me tell you. No, Martin Short, Steve Martin is great, and Steve Martin is the Steve Martin of the last 30 years. Funny, but an older Steve Martin. Yeah. Martin Short at one point does a fall, and I'm pretty sure it's Martin Short, and my wife lost her shit because one of her favorite movies. I'm not saying go watch the movie. But I implore anybody to watch the first 10 minutes of Three Fugitives, or just watch the trailer. Like, we've watched that trailer. Like, every time somebody mentions they haven't seen this movie, my wife makes them watch a trailer. There is a sight gag in this that each and every time brings such joy and delight to she lights up like a Christmas tree. But I'm watching Martin Short, who might be the most Martin Shortiest of the Martin Short catalog. He is so him, and everything about Selena Gomez is great. Steve Martin is great. the ensemble cast and the bit players. It's a great series, but Martin Short is a fucking goddamn national treasure.
Which
and I think
nation,
he's
though?
one of those guys where I think I actually don't like him as much when he's like the only guy. I think he seems like he has to have some others.
He has to play off somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
like Clifford was just unwatchable. Now that was a bad idea, but it was unwatchable.
Yeah, okay. So I will not have you come on this and besmirch the good name of Charles
Have you watched
Grodin.
Clifford? Have you
No,
watched
of course
Clifford?
I haven't watched Clifford.
I wonder, I haven't watched Clifford myself. I wonder if this is an
I
Ishtar
paid
thing.
to watch Clifford.
No,
Oh,
it's not an Ishtar thing.
I went,
Alright.
I went to the theater and saw Clifford.
Okay, but you
It
watched it,
was-
from
it was horrible.
1990 perspective. I got to watch it from 2021 perspective. You
No,
know,
I do
I'm
not.
older.
While
I'm wiser.
high.
I do not.
So have you gentlemen watched Squid Game?
Yes,
I'm on it, but I haven't. I'm still behind. But yeah,
I
Where-
finished the series.
Where are you, Biff?
I'm still on like episode 3. I'm so slow because this has been a busy 10 days at work, and it's gonna be
Okay.
another busy 10 days at work. So
So maybe maybe we'll bring my 11-year-old in to talk to Joe about it. When Joe realized my 11-year-old watched it, it's like, I think it's one of the first times Joe's like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Because it's
Is this
horrible.
how we would lead into the parenting tip?
No, you know what? Yeah, I think so, but we will get there. But with it's one of those things where we were too far into it where I left. I after a certain point, I jumped off. He was watching it with his mom, and I've talked about it. One episode destroyed the both of them, and it's like, yeah, I can't do it. I came back, I watched the finale, and
Wait, I just want to, no spoilers. The Marbles episode?
yes. Joe wrecked. Like she carried this dripping, sobbing piece of flesh up, and he was just, and I got mad at them because management has this bad habit of going and seeing The Purge. Do you want to go see The Purge? No, under no circumstances do I want to see The Purge. Okay, she comes home. I have to tell you about it. Actually, you don't. Because if I wanted to know about it, I would have gone with you. Okay, I just have to tell you this one thing. No, you really don't. Okay, but this happens. It's like, now I know it. And I can't unhear and unsee what I've done. It's like, no, I don't want to. And so between the two of them, they told me so much. I'm like, okay, now I never made a better decision in my life than to not watch that. But
there you go.
But yeah, so getting into parenting tips, other than not letting your 11-year-old watch Squid Game, do you got a parenting tip there?
I've got nothing because I've been too busy at work, but maybe the other guy does.
What about you, Joe? I'm gonna see Joe's parenting in action tomorrow down in Hartford at Retro. No, look, hey, your kids are willing to go to a retro game convention with you again. So you're doing a couple things, right? Give us one tip.
Force your kids to like what you like growing up. That way you can have fun for the rest of your life. You can just keep doing
So you're talking about boobies.
Yes.
Are you listening to Weird Al on the way down?
We might, Rabbit. We might.
Can I drive with you?
I don't know. Oh, you want me to FaceTime with you? So
Yeah, we could. Here's my parenting tip. 11-year-old is going to be, was out of school this week and next week. He's got a medical thing going on. And his brother, who is feels left out and jealous. It's like, I want to stay home a day. And no, you're going to school. You don't need to stay home. You just missed a couple days when Renetsky was in town. You just had this vacation, Thanksgiving coming up. He wouldn't stop feeling like he was being cheated. Okay, you can stay home. But here's the kicker. His mom took the phone and the internet was turned off. You want to stay home and watch terrestrial television and watch The Price is Right like we did and liked it? Right. He doesn't want to do that. You know what I mean?
What's wrong with Price is Right? Well,
nothing.
Maybe,
nothing.
Wait, who's the host now? Is it Wayne Brady?
No, that's still it's still, isn't it
Drew Carey?
Drew Carey still?
Yes.
It's not Bob Barker, it's not The Price is Right. And unless they're bringing out Plinko. No, but
unless you're watching Pluto TV's 24-hour Price is Right channel.
I'm so old that I remember when Bob Barker replaced the other dude.
What?
Bob Barker didn't replace any. What?
Didn't he replace another dude? I thought there was another dude before Bob Barker.
Well, if you want to get technical,
here we go.
There was a show called.
Keep
there
going,
was
guys.
a show called The Price is Right,
Uh-huh.
and it was from like the 50s or 60s, and Bill Cullen was the host.
Okay.
And then-
that's not what I was thinking of. But
And then they went away, and then New Price is Right premiered in 1972 with Bob Barker.
Oh, okay. So I probably just had either I had it wrong or I saw a week. Did they ever have replacement hosts or anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Clean living. No,
Yeah.
so my parenting tip is make sure that if they get that unexpected sick day off in which they're not sick, that it sucks so much that they rather be in school. That's my parenting tip. And I stuck by it. It's like, nope, because I have that app where everything except my work computer was turned off. So they couldn't access the Hulu TV. Thank you, Joe. And they couldn't access Disney Plus, those evil bastards, or basically, their jam is both YouTube because they're stupid. But that's my parenting tip is make sure it's that relentless that they would rather be in school.
You made a poor choice, my friend.
There you go.
Okay, well, I'm done. So the two of you can hash
No,
out
I
how we
think
wrap this.
I'm gonna let Joe take it home.
Well, thanks for listening to Carnival Personnel. You can catch us on anywhere you get your podcasts. No, not really. Just one place. I guess you can only download it on Apple Podcast. You can look us up on YouTube. Us. Listen to me like I'm part of this show. I'm not really. You're not dragging me back in. You've tricked me, by the way, Mr. Jacques. You said that there was going to be a video game guy here. You can catch Jacques on iHeartRadio and whatever else. Any other lies you want to tell me? You're not on iHeartRadio. Oh, you are? Okay. Good for you. Carnival Podcast is the name of the Twitter account that Jacques tweets his personal political views from, because he doesn't realize there are two people on the podcast, not just him. There's no disclaimer on the Twitter page that says that the views and the political views of those of Carnival Personnel Podcast do not, whatever the fuck.
It turns out I'm Oates, and there you go.
Right, you're lucky. You're lucky to be Oates, my friend. You should be the ampersand. That's how in Hall and Oates. By the way, they were never called Hall and Oates. They were Daryl Hall and John Oates, but we won't get into the weeds there. So that's that. I'm just making it harder for Jacques to edit. And, it's been good talking to you fellas. It's been really nice. And make sure that the video game guy shows up next time. Don't catch him on a night where he's going to bed early so that he can make the incredulous journey to Hartford, Connecticut at, 5 a.m. or whatever time it takes for him to get down there. It's 9:19 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Temperature is 46 degrees. You're listening to the Night Owl on WXRK, real old radio. Yeah, stream of consciousness. No net Joe. Just letting it all hang out, letting it loose, letting it fly. No stopping. I'm not even saying goodbye. Just never talk. I'm just never stopping. Oh, yeah. I've taken complete control. And now I'm going to read from The Great Gatsby.
Read.
I think it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle who once said, "Don't forget."
Feeling somewhat sick. Take it slowly, no, never one coming to the click. Pull back, I'm having trouble with my words. It's hard to speak without a cause. Between pregnant pause, this and was is where I'm lost. Jesus in the basement, playing silly games like ours. Whoa, dogs. It's uncertainty. It's knows and no one cares. Still not sure that I'm not fine. Take it slow, no one needs to be that real. I'm having trouble with my thoughts between the pregnant pause of is and was is where I'm lost. She's us in the basement, playing silly games like ours. Whoa, dawn. She knows the way I think, but I'm not sure I care. She knows the way I feel, though I'm feeling she's not there. Between the pregnant pause of is and was is where I'm lost. She's us in the basement, playing silly games like ours. Feeling something snapping, but I'm not sure what it is. I know that it's not real, but I think that it's the shit. And I watch the fake discomfort, gnawing sense of peace. Told him that it tucks me in, makes a tangle of the sheets. So I read my mind till eyes it fills the bucket, ready not in time. You can cook it, I can fuck it. So I read my mind till eyes it fills the bucket, ready not in time. You can cook it, I can fuck it.